once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. And at the other end of the series of tubes and wires we call the internets is Joe, Crazy Writer. How you doing today, Joe?
Hot snot! I got my Spider-Man water web shooter out of my box of Honey Nut Cheerios, and I am happy.
I still have to get one of those.
Woohoo! Yeah, they're not doing the comics anymore, but I got my web shooter. Good luck finding it. I went to Target. I wanted one for my other hand because I only got the one, but I couldn't find it. So I'll have silly string in one and a water shooter in the other.
I just go for any kind of cereal that has a prize.
I like prizes too, and I was so out of it when I opened it. Was not paying attention. I opened up. It's like, oh, there's a prize here, and then I look on the box, and it's like, oh. Well, see, what had happened is I opened up my other box of Cheerios. Well, it wasn't really. It was open already, and it was stale because it had been sitting there for like 5 months. So I was really like, I'm not going to eat these. I threw them on. I feel guilty because I'm throwing food away. And then I opened up the new box, and guilt is gone. I got my Spider-Man web shooter. Woohoo! What? Yes,
what is
time
that
for some
noise
theme song
in the
music.
background? Oh, somebody's calling you.
Somebody's answering machine.
Ah. Well, this is episode, let me carry the 4. Normally there's no math. This is episode 320.
Woohoo!
That means we now have more episodes, Joe, than The Voice, than America's Got Talent, than MLB Network, and in Canada we have more episodes than the soap opera Train 45, and the British soap opera Night and Day. We are closing in on The Weakest Link. Mary Hartman, we're going to beat them here real soon. Let's see, Mad TV, we'll soon have more episodes of Mad TV. And here's one, in about 12 episodes, we're going to be beating one of your favorite shows, Joe.
Which is?
ER.
Well, it wasn't personal favorite, but...
Now, I'll be excited when we have more episodes than CSI, because I like the CSI.
I'm waiting till we break Gunsmoke.
Oh, let me see here. How many episodes did Gunsmoke do?
Lots.
There we go. Gunsmoke did 635 episodes, so that's about 7 years away.
Yep, I'll hopefully be retired then.
Well,
we'll have our special retiring episode.
You're not retiring from this. There's no way out. You know that, right?
Unlike you and your cons, I'm just not going to say, I'm retired. No, we're going to have a gala. Because what that means is, if I don't have to go to work every day, I might end up becoming a podcast machine like you.
Well, I doubt that.
I do, but I have a lot of things to pod, but all in good time.
I do think it's kind of interesting. Do you know why Gunsmoke stayed on the air as long as it did?
Good sponsors?
No. Not only was it a good show, not only did it do good ratings, let's see here, popularity. Let's see. By its last season, it was 28th in the ratings. But the head of CBS, his wife, said that it was her favorite show. And if it were ever canceled, she would divorce him.
Well, we know what happened in the 70s.
Well, he retired. And when he retired, about a year later, Gunsmoke went from number 15 to number 28, and CBS was trying to get that was after what they called the rural purge. You've heard of the rural purge, right, Joe?
Yep.
That was when they canceled all their shows that were rural, like Beverly Hillbillies and Green Acres and Petticoat Junction and Mayberry RFD. All those, they canceled them. And everybody thought CBS was insane, and instead they had All in the Family and Mary Tyler Moore and Bob Newhart and MASH, and because their audience was older, they wanted to upgrade to an urban, younger audience. It was actually one of the bigger events in TV scheduling back when we were wee small children.
Yep.
But that doesn't have anything to do with comics.
No.
We're going to start with actual sad news.
Yeah, it's been what we just had passed the anniversary of the Spider-Man TV show on CBS.
That lasted, like 9 episodes?
A season, yeah. It was very, very disturbing.
As a kid, I liked it because it was Spider-Man.
But there wasn't enough Spider-Man in it. We got more Spider-Man in the Electric Company version, Well,
who was writing the Spider-Man comic back then, Joe?
Len Wein? I don't know.
That's right, Len Wein.
What a tie-in.
Yes, and Len Wein passed away last week.
Yeah.
Actually, almost right after we recorded last week's episode.
I've been reading different memorials online with people who have worked with him. Len Wein, of course, co-created Swamp Thing, Wolverine. You just go to Wikipedia.
The new X-Men.
He is one of the creators, much like when we talked about Jack Kirby, that I had no idea until much later just how much I read either his works or his creations. And as I got older, because of course I started comics as a collector in about 1978 or so, and then I started to go backwards, mostly because, when you got, who even did that Saga of the Swamp Thing when that came out?
That was Alan Moore.
Or
do you mean the first batch was by Marty Pasco?
Yeah, before Alan got his greedy little fingers into it. And so I was aware that there was an earlier version done, and usually through reprints and things like that, I was able to read it. And at least, the goal was, obviously back then, I was young and naive and figured my goal was to have one of every single comic ever published. But
me, I just wanted to know all the Marvel stuff. I didn't care if it was a reprint or not.
Well, I figured that was more possible because I figured the first Marvel was, Fantastic Four 1. And I think it was going for a paltry sum of like $300 or something. When quarters, comics were a quarter then.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was kind of interesting just to read the different people who knew Len, and all I got out of him was the different tributes was great sense of humor and a good guy.
He was the third editor-in-chief of the Marvel era. First was Stan Lee. Then when Stan stepped down, Roy Thomas stepped in. And then when Roy Thomas stepped down, Len Wein stepped in, which was kind of weird for a lot of people at Marvel because he and Marv Wolfman and Gary Conway, they were, kind of the first of the new generation. Should we
throw in an Ask the Strode?
Sure.
What is Len Wein's first superhero work for Marvel?
Oh, for Marvel.
Dun, dun, dun.
I know he was real early on the Defenders. I'm going to guess Defenders.
Daredevil 71.
Oh, he broke in on...
He did a one-off story.
Okay.
It was co-written with staff editor-writer Roy Thomas at the time.
Okay. That was when he was still kicking around, and he would go to the offices and just pitch stories.
Yeah.
He broke in mostly, for the most part, at DC.
Yeah. DC, superhero titles, Adventures, the Supergirl Zatanna area, which is cool because that's one of the things I've been picking up. Flash, Superman, a good run on Phantom Stranger starting at about 14. I'm just trying to read some of his earlier work.
Well, when he came to Marvel, he kind of became, by the mid-'70s, he was their top-name guy.
Aha, here I got it. What is his first professional comic story?
Oh, it has to be one of those House of Mystery, one little short stories.
Teen Titans 18 in 1960.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Co-created with Marv Wolfman Red Star, the first official Russian superhero.
Yep, I actually knew that. But when I started reading comics, he was writing Thor, he was writing Spider-Man, and he was writing Hulk, which were 3 of Marvel's top books. And when he was one of those guys, he was editor-in-chief, and when he stepped down, Marv Wolfman came in, but he was able to he was the editor of his own books, because that was kind of the thing. If you were editor-in-chief at Marvel and then you stepped down, you got to be the editor of your own books, because there weren't all that many people doing it. And for all of the great stuff about his stories, and all the great stories he wrote, he was a better editor. He's the guy who brought Alan Moore over and gave him Swamp Thing. So when people were like, oh, Alan Moore's destroyed Swamp Thing, well, Len Wein's the one who said, sure, do that.
Why not? Nothing else going on.
Crisis on Infinite Earths, edited by Len Wein. New Teen Titans by Wolfman and Perez, edited by Len Wein. Watchmen, edited by Len Wein. And when I first got onto the national bulletin boards, I was on Genie. Len Wein and his wife Christine were in the comics area answering questions and taking part in chats, and a lot of professionals online back then were, I'm a professional, he was a fan. Loved comics, loved talking about comics, loved telling stories about his time in comics, loved a good joke. I haven't heard anything bad about him. If you want a lot of good stories, head on over to Mark Evanier's blog, News from Me. He's been friends with Len for almost 50 years and is just every so often, putting up another story about Len.
What are some of the last things that Len did?
He did one of the Before Watchmen books.
I can't say it. Osmodeus?
Osmodeus.
Yeah, he did that, art by Jay Lee, and he and Jose Luis Garcia Lopez produced the comic adaptation of a Two-Face story that Harlan Ellison wrote for Batman 1966 television series that was never used.
Len did a lot of work in animation, too. What most fans didn't know, and I didn't know till he passed, was he had kidney problems for a long time, to the point where even in the early 80s, it was, Len's probably not going to be with us for too long. But passed away at 70, one of the giants, and he was one of those guys back in the day. Now, creators are very much, I don't want to give Marvel and DC my creations. I wouldn't want to own them when I go. He created characters, right and left. Just because, hey, I need a new character for this, got to do a new character for that. If he only created Wolverine, he'd be a legend. But come on, Joe, he created Big Wheel and the Rocket Racer.
That alone should right up there with Skate Man. It's
okay, they can't all be winners.
No, but the point is he was doing it. Chris Claremont is quoted as saying, the history of modern comics would be incredibly different if you took Wein's contribution out of the mix. The fact that he doesn't get credit for half the time is disgraceful. We owe a lot of what we are, certainly on the X-Men, to Len and to Dave Cockrum.
And the other thing about Len as an editor, every person who worked with him has said, he made my work better. And you don't hear that a lot. You hear a lot of people about fighting with editors and, I had to force the editor to do this. But when I read what creators say about Len knew comics and he knew how to make a story better. He would just give a suggestion. He wouldn't say, do this or else. It was, how about if you try this? And, it's hard for me because these were like the guys in the 70s where, they were in their 20s. So in your head, if you haven't met them, they kind of stay that age in your head. So when I heard Len was 70, it's like, oh, really? Then I thought to myself, well, yeah, I'm in my 50s. Of course he'd be older than me.
Yeah, I'd have a tough time with that because it's, you stop and you think, 78, 88, 98, 2008.
Yeah, you're doing the math, Joe.
I'm going to stop because I'm running out of fingers, but I've been collecting comics a long time, and a lot of the guys and the stuff that I've grown to appreciate and like, they were there before, at least 10, 20 years before me.
Yeah. Well, there's no real easy segue, so we're not going to do one. Our reviews are getting noticed, Joe.
What?
Yes.
I hate it when people notice what I say.
Well, you didn't say anything last week.
Well, I did say I want to buy the book.
Okay. But we did a review of Spencer and Locke last week. And the editor on the book liked our review. First off, I'm shocked he listened. He waded through this bunch of silliness, but he was out on the fire-breathing Twitter machine, pulled a quote from it that I said that the artwork was beautiful, used that in the Twitter, and boy, a whole bunch of likes, and I actually got a couple emails, Joe, from people who listened to the episode because of that, and they said, you guys are actually influential.
Don't tell me that.
I'm telling you that because I have been saying now for what, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? How long, Joe? How long have I said that we are a national treasure?
Wasn't that a movie with Nicolas Cage?
Okay, so it was after that. But it's time for another review. We were sent a book by Dynamite.
Dynamite!
And it is John Carter, The End.
Dun, dun, dun.
Now, I am not a huge John Carter fan. Not really big on Edgar Rice Burroughs. Not because I hate his work. It's just I never really got around to it. But John Carter is the John Carter, Warlord of Mars. He's a Civil War veteran who gets transported to Mars, where he becomes one of their heroes. And this is the final story. This is the end of the road for him. And coming out soon as a trade paperback, it was a five-issue miniseries. Joe, did you get to read it?
I did. It was written by Brian Wood, Alex Cox, with art by Hayden Sherman.
Not the Alex Cox I thought, by the way.
Oh?
Because when I saw Alex Cox, it's like, oh, wow! The guy who wrote and directed Repo Man? No, this is a different Alex Cox.
No, different guy. Yeah.
So still Alex Cox is the movie creator, Alex Cox, still trying to recover from the movie he did called Straight to Hell. That pretty much killed his career. How sad is that?
Well, my big thing on this particular book is, okay, I'm aware of who John Carter is. Never read anything that either Burroughs has written or anything that Dynamite has produced, or even, the Marvel adaptations and series that they did, even though I have the omnibus.
Yeah, we both bought it when it was $12.
Yeah, and it's one of those things I'll get around to reading. So to me, I'm at the end. I am coming in with two problems. I don't know the characters. I'm aware of who's his wife or queen
Asia
or whatever.
Forrest.
Mostly because of the really sexy covers that Dynamite, variant covers that Dynamite does. A few nudies, things like that. So you can't help but notice that on the newsstand when you're going through. The story was okay. I was intrigued enough to go through it. I didn't get to a point where it's like, I don't want to read this and put it down. Even though I'm not, different characters are revealed, different people show up, and if you've been reading the series for a while, you're going to go, oh, wow! And to me, I'm like, man, let's get going. Eventually, you're going to be the boss. Did not see the twist, what a twist, come. My biggest problem on this was mostly the artwork. If you're going to do a property like this, I got to say that Hayden's art was very stylish. I'm not a fan of it. And generally when you do a licensed product like Dynamite does a lot, I know there really isn't a standard to go with, especially since it's not necessarily a TV show. I mean, if you drew a Kirk of the original series and you don't make it sort of look like William Shatner, you kind of lost me. So for me, a lot of times is I had to double stop and go back and follow along and try to figure out who the characters were. And that even includes John Carter. It includes his son. It includes some of the other guys, the big reveal of the villain. Again, they don't mean much to me. Part of me wonders if this is the end, if this is like the last part that Dynamite is doing the license for. In other words, their license is up, we're just going to finish it. If so, it smacks a lot of, the same problem I had with their Battlestar Galactica, Death of Apollo. The artwork was very stylish. It just wasn't for me. I couldn't tell who was who. I couldn't tell the action that was going on. The only way I knew the characters, more in Battlestar Galactica than John Carter's, because I know the characters in Battlestar Galactica. But I've seen this before. Marvel had it when they did Damage Control. They had very clean art style in the first two miniseries, and then they're like the last one they just kind of did, and it almost killed it because people were, and at the time I had at the store, people were reading it like, oh, what is this? What happened to the artwork? Again, it's a different style. Heck, I had that same problem. Who did the kindly ones on Sandman?
That was Mark Wheatley.
Oh my! I could not read that when it came out as a monthly comic. I didn't appreciate it until I started reading it as a graphic novel, and then I actually knew who everybody was. That's kind of this problem I have here. I'm not familiar with the characters, the art style. And again, if this is the end of the series for Dynamite, it's like they almost like, hey, just bang this thing out, let's get it over with, get the licensee filled, and we'll move on to the next one. I may be wrong on that. Maybe someone can enlighten us later and let us know if indeed that's the case. But, for someone like me just coming into this was a tough read. And because eventually the story overtook me, even though there were several times in the middle of the graphic novel where I was like, I don't know what the hell's going on. I just kept reading it because I knew eventually we were going to have, I guess, the big boss fight. They're going to resolve it. We got to see what's going on. And there was a twist that came in about, where were we? About issue 4 that I didn't see coming that threw me. And, then again, I didn't know half the characters anyway. So again, I had a tough time with this one. If you're a John Carter fan, you probably want to pick it up. You'd probably get more out of it than me. If you're not a John Carter fan, I'd probably be more, try to pick it up in a library or just go buy something else.
So you're rating it as a borrow?
Pretty much.
I, again, am not very familiar with John Carter, Warlord of Mars. I read a few of the Marvel books back in the day. Again, I bought the omnibus because it was like, oh, wow, I could get the whole thing dirt cheap. Haven't had time to read it. I've read a few of the Tarzan books. I know about John Carter because a lot of comic book people and creators are fans of Edgar Rice Burroughs. So they talk about it a lot. The art reminded me a lot of Ted McKeever, who did books at both Marvel and DC, a very stylized, very impressionistic sort of art. And I agree, I don't think that style of art works on this book. This was kind of just an action-oriented, straightforward story. There wasn't a lot of artsy-fartsy to it, which you wouldn't want a lot of artsy-fartsy to a John Carter story, just like you wouldn't want a lot of artsy-fartsy to Tarzan. The Tarzan novels were very pulpy, very much this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. And I imagine the John Carter novels are like that too. They're just action novels. Brian Wood is someone whose work I enjoy. Alex Cox, someone I did not know. He co-wrote it. I guess he's been working on stuff at Dynamite for a while. Former comic shop owner. Might still be a comic shop owner. Because when I saw Alex Cox, I have to look that up. The story felt to me very... Again, there was a twist, but it started with, okay, John Carter and his wife have been away for a long time, and while they've been gone, things have fallen apart. His son has turned to the dark side. Oh, really? Huh, I've never heard that before. So, the story itself, I imagine if you've read the John Carter books, it meant a lot more, but to me, it felt a little cliched. It felt a little by the numbers. This did not win me over and make me say that I wanted to read a bunch of John Carter stuff. I don't know if they still have the license or not, but I know that Marvel did a bunch of The End, which were the last stories of characters. And if they're just kind of doing the same thing here, it wasn't that spectacular an ending. It felt more like, okay, here's what people expect. There wasn't a lot of time spent introducing characters. You pretty much were assumed that you knew them, so it is not new reader friendly.
Although at the end, they do have a thing where they talk about the designs, why they made the characters the way they did.
Yeah.
So that might be a good place to start if you're not familiar with it. Because, again, we're dealing not with John Carter in his prime, but years, if not centuries later, after his major adventures. It's almost like a poor man's Dark Knight for John Carter. He's coming back because he's got to right a wrong.
Yeah. And I think if they would have got a more realistic artist, somebody in the Brune Hogarth school, the John Buscema school, somebody who drew realistic figures, the story would have worked a lot better to my mind. On the buy, borrow, or ignore, quite honestly, if I weren't reviewing it, I would have ignored it. This did not win me over to John Carter. It's still one of the things where, I probably should read those John Carter novels at some point. But to me, it was an ignore. Joe, you put it as a borrow?
Yeah, with probably the caveat that, if you're a John Carter fan, this is probably a good book to pick up. If you're not, it's probably not the best one to start with. Which, for me, again, this was my first real comic book exposure to John Carter.
So there you go, kids. There's our review. Joe, how much you want to bet they're not going to be tweeting this one out?
Probably not. Call them like you see it. I'm a whale biologist.
Right. That's the thing about a review. If we say everything's great, people aren't going to trust our reviews.
Nope.
Speaking of things that we think were great, a little while back, Joe, do you remember we were doing the Dream Teams?
Yes.
We were doing Dream Teams for Marvel. And what a Dream Team is these are the people in your perfect world would take over these comics. Now, maybe they don't like the character. Maybe they can't do a monthly book. Maybe the two creators that we name hate each other and would, like draw knives and kill each other rather than work together. That's not what this is about. This is about who we think would be really cool in our dream to do these comics. So we did Marvel. I thought we'd do DC.
Cool.
So, Joe, I'm going to start with Batman.
No.
Batman.
Batman.
Kite Man. Hell yeah.
Skate Man.
Actually, after reading the Batman Rebirth, I want a Kite Man mid-series. But as much as I love Tom King on the book, we're going Dream Teams. Joe, for Batman, I have Howard Chaykin, artist and writer,
Ooh.
because I loved what he did on The Shadow. And I wish he would have done more of The Shadow. Chaykin looks at the vigilante a little differently, and one of the things he was known for in the 70s and 80s is the swashbuckling hero who's a bit of a tad, bit of a jerk, kind of a womanizer, has a heart of gold, but really kind of a jerk too. And I would love to see him do that take on Batman. I'd like to see the swashbuckling Batman return, who, during the day he's Bruce Wayne and he's out with all the ladies, and at night he's beating the crap out of bad guys, and Chaykin's art still blows me away. I'm reading Divided States of Hysteria, And the guy's still got chops. He's still got chops in his 60s, man. I'd love to see him take on Batman. Joe?
Well, I kind of telegraphed it last podcast, but by God, I want Marv Wolfman and George Perez back on Teen Titans. I don't care if you call them new. I don't care if you call them old. I don't care if you just use Titans. But I want you to take the core guys together. Heck, do both books if you're going to have the adult Titans and then the younger sidekicks. I'm not sure what they call them. But there was just something about that run that was magical. What you forget is that New Teen Titans under Marv Wolfman and George Perez gave X-Men a run for their money.
Yeah.
So much that they actually did a crossover between the two that was fabulous if you could ever find it and dig it out.
They're
so
still out
me,
there. I doubt they're still
250,
but that was one of those. It was an early Baxter book, and it was $250, which was like...
Well, and it was comic book size.
Almost.
It wasn't Treasury Edition size, so it was easy to read. It was, I think Walt Simonson did the art.
Yes.
And
Walt Simonson got Dark Side.
And you can put it in your comic collection without a problem. And you don't have to worry about it, I pulled my treasuries out and they're all bent in half. So, yeah, to me, that's number one on We're Gonna Do It Parade.
Second book I have is Detective, because if you got Batman, you got Detective. Joe, I would like to see Mike Mignola do Detective. He's done some Batman work before, and that's the
big question. Are you going to have Detective be Batman still, or are you going to kind of, this is going to be like Batman's cast and...
Oh, no, it's Batman.
Are you going to have him be Batman a detective or Batman the brute thug?
Batman, however, Mike Mignola wants to do him.
Faith in the Mike.
That's right. Mike Mignola's drawn a few Batman stories back before he wrote everything he did. One of the things that, if you go back those early Hellboys, they were scripted by Byrne because Mignola didn't have enough faith in his own scripting. But soon he started scripting his own stuff. I would love to see a mature... after doing his own stuff for 20 years, Mike Mignola come back, kick ass on Batman. Perfect with mood. He could actually do the occult stuff that Batman was involved with in the 70s, back when horror comics were big, and they had a lot of dark and supernatural overtones to the Batman stories. And come on, it's Mike Mignola! Joe?
Hey, you got to get Neil Gaiman back on Sandman. I don't care if he's doing stories we haven't seen. There's a lot of story questions whenever you read the full series, including the what was the name of the last one they just did? Oh man, brain fart. Beautiful story, Overture, and it's just, I guess even because Daniel showed up in the current DC Dark Knight's Metal. There's just so much more that could be done. And I want Neil doing it. I've read Sandman Mystery Theater and Sandman Presents, and it's fun watching other people play with the toys, but they never really played with Daniel or Morpheus the way we want it. So, again, DC just... we talk about the story where Neil showed up when I got a Sandman story, and at the time DC said, no, we don't want it. It'd be like, here, Neil, write a check, go write it for me. So, and again, this
Neil,
is a
whatever
monthly,
you do, that's great.
This is a monthly series, so we're going to chain him down and do it. Or better yet, have Neil solicit his friends. I'd love to see an Amanda Connor, or even his wife do one. And, or just people that Neil knows say, here, write a Sandman story. Go with it, I want me more Sandman.
One of the creators who has a deep abiding love of Superman, yet DC would not let him get his hands on the regular Superman book, Mark Miller. Mark Miller did Superman Adventures. He did Red Sun, which is one of the best-selling Superman trade paperbacks. My son adores Red Sun. He actually made him buy the deluxe hardcover when when they did a deluxe hardcover reprint of it. But he never got to play with Superman, even though he and Mark Waid and Grant Morrison made a pitch back in 2000 that you can still find online that would have kicked mighty ass. I want to see Mark Miller as writer and Frank Quitely as artist. Frank Quitely, the guy who drew All-Star Superman. I think they would make Superman one of the best-selling comics again. I think they would have the sensibility and the art style that would really make people sit up, take notice, and become huge Superman fans. Joe?
All right, I'm going to give you 2 names and a title. Garth Ennis, Steve Dillon, Suicide Squad.
Well, here's the problem.
No problem. This is my dream.
Steve Dillon passed away.
This is what I want. Oh.
Yeah, Steve Dillon passed away.
Damn it.
It was earlier this year.
He'll be easier to work with. But I just keep thinking, I was thinking, you know, there's certain characters in the universe that Garth Ennis has given the Punisher. Well, that's one. Deadshot, Vigilante. I just figured Suicide Squad would be perfect. Garth can go find his own artist now. I tried, but I was unaware Mr. Dillon passed away. But I still think that would be kind of interesting to see where Garth might go with something like that.
For the other Superman book, Action Comics, again, another writer-artist, Dan Jurgens. And the reason is Dan has kind of become the premier Superman creator. He actually came on the Superman books in the early 90s and is the one guy who's still left. He's the last man standing from the Triangle era. He left Superman for a while, has come back. He has an understanding of Superman. He does good Superman stories that play off the action aspect of it. And we don't see enough of Dan's art. Dan has a really good, kind of a John Buscema-light style that I enjoy on superhero books. So I think it would be cool to have Dan Jurgens, writer-artist, on Superman again. Joe?
I would take Swamp Thing and give it to Alan Moore, of course with Steve Bissett, or maybe get Rick Veitch back to write it if Alan really doesn't want to work with that. You can tell a lot of the things that I'm going to be working with are things that I enjoyed reading and that I still reread to this day. And that run of Swamp Thing that both Alan did and Rick
Veitch.
Rick, I know I can't read my own writing in this one. Just fabulous. And it'd be fun to see. I mean, Swamp Thing's the type of character that, you know, maybe, let's see what Richard Corbin can come with. Stephen King, you got anything?
I hadn't even thought of that. Rich Corbin on Swamp Thing.
I know. Just, you need someone who's got the sense of horror, and because just start with the Swamp Thing and go from there. And see where, because, I mean, DC and Marvel, too, have great horror characters that they tend not to use because you don't have a guy who can utilize them properly. And, you know, we'll talk a little bit when we get to geeking as to why I'm thinking this way. But the Swamp Thing is definitely one that I'd like to see Alan Moore and Rick and Steve get back on.
The next book is the third in the trilogy, the third in the triad, Wonder Woman. Now, Wonder Woman is a book that I enjoyed the most when George Perez was really tying it in with Greek mythology. So I thought, who's better at long-term planning and mythology-type stories than Jonathan Hickman? Hickman, who did that fantastic run on the Fantastic Four, did Secret Wars. I'm going through the Avengers in the omnibus for a second read, and just blows me away, utterly blows me away with how he thinks long-term, tells stories long-term, and I think that's something that Wonder Woman needs. And the artist is someone that I discovered, and I think, Joe, you're a friend of her, too, on Facebook. She does a lot of convention appearances, a lot of commissioned art, but I don't think she's ever been assigned on a book, and that's Sora, S-U-H-N-G. Sora Sung. She is an amazing artist when it comes to women. All of her art of women is just drop-dead sexy. And Wonder Woman should be drop-dead sexy. I think when they make her a little too matrony, the book doesn't work as well. Wonder Woman should be kind of, like Superman, the ultimate female figure. And Sora does a fantastic job on other characters. Love to see her working with a writer like Jonathan Hickman. I think that book would blow a lot of stuff off the stands. Joe?
Sure. Take away my steam on that, because I'd take Jonathan Hickman with Epting and put him on Justice League.
Oh, yep.
I love what they did with the Avengers. I mean, he was doing a Fantastic Four, FF, Avengers, New Avengers, Secret Wars, to bam. It's like, take that long-term planning that, we just love, that makes Omnibus, guys, and let them go with JLA. I mean, the guys you have to play with, think about everybody who's ever been in the JLA. If you want, you could even bring in the Justice Society. And again, I don't know if there is I don't think there's a JSA in the New 52, but, you've had an Earth 2, or did they destroy it? Whatever. This would give you an opportunity to remake that type of crossover fun, where every year they have a chance to do it. Maybe I would trust Jonathan to do a new Crisis on DC, even though DC's kind of like, okay, no more reboots, no more Crisis. He would be the guy.
There's a rebirth.
He's the guy I would say, okay, we're going to let you run with this and see where you go. So definitely Jonathan Hickman and Steve Epting on art for JLA.
Well, you know who I have for the Justice League, Joe?
No, I don't.
Writer Alex Ross. Artist John Cassaday. Alex Ross did the Justice miniseries. That was one of the best Justice League stories ever told. Ross has a love and a reverence for the original 7. And one of the things that always bothers me is with the Justice League, anytime they have the original 7, as fans, we're all like, yeah! And then slowly over time, it's, they're going to take out Aquaman. They're going to take out Superman. They're going to take out this character. Till it's a bunch of also-rans. Nope. Alex Ross, art by John Cassaday, the original 7. And because it's Alex Ross, he's got enough clout that if they say, well, we really don't think that you should be able to use, he could just say, shut up.
Shut up.
Joe?
I would go, and I've talked about this before, and again, I don't think this would work in a New 52, but hey, this is my dream team. Roy Thomas, George Perez, All-Star Squadron. If you're going to shoehorn in the New 52, that's fine, but I would love to see Roy go back to what he does best, the Golden Age. Say, okay, this is all pre-crisis stuff, and this is what I'm going with, and just let him run. It could be a standalone book. It can be, if it ties into talk to Hickman. Let's tie this all together somehow, But I just think and Roy could get whoever wants to do it. I just love George Perez. I mean, in my world, George Perez could do every single comic we're talking about now, but he excels at the team books, and he does outstanding with it. So that would be my sixth pick.
The next one of the big names at DC would be Aquaman, because Aquaman's getting a movie,
Well, shit, next you're going to say he's going to be part of the Justice League.
Of course. I would put Greg Rucka as writer, because Greg Rucka has shown over at Marvel that he's able to take characters that people don't have a lot of faith in and find something new and interesting about them. And for artist, I picked Fiona Staples, because she's the artist who does Saga. And she's able to make all of those alien worlds both look different and yet familiar. So put Fiona Staples on Aquaman so that Atlantis can finally, once again, have a look to it. So it doesn't just look like, it's a city under the sea. Atlantis should look different. it should look unique. It shouldn't look like anything we've seen before. And Greg Rucka can really delve into the Atlantean politics and the whole idea of the fact that there's this continent that hasn't been a part of our world for over 2,000 years. I think that they would be a team to make Aquaman interesting. Joe?
I would like to see Jim Starlin take over the DC vast universe. You know, he did it a little bit of Mystery in Space miniseries before the New 52 kind of cracked everything. This is largely untouched, unexplored, and we have no idea what's really going on out there because most of the stuff we've been doing has been either coming to Earth or just ignored. So for me, just Jim, sit down, plot out what's going on out there, and go for it, whether you tie it into stuff going on Earth, kind of like the way they did Annihilation at Marvel. You know, it's just, this is something that's going on while Earth is largely untouched. But think about the different characters, the different races, the different, you could pull storylines from, you know, the Silver Age, from the future, from whatever, and just have some fun with it and see where it goes.
Next book that I have, because we're going down the list. Joe, you mentioned Suicide Squad. I have a team that you may not have even thought of on Suicide Squad. And that is the team that is currently doing Image Books' Bitch Planet, which is comics set in an interplanetary prison. Kelly Sue DeConnick and Valentine DeLandro put them on Suicide Squad. Yes, it's typecasting because they're doing a really good prison comic, but I like the idea of having creators who have not been at DC playing with the DC toys. Kelly Sue DeConnick actually cut her teeth over at Marvel, working on Captain Marvel and other books like that. Her husband is Matt Fraction, who, again, has not ever worked at DC. So bringing in some new blood, rather than, oh, here are the guys that worked at Marvel 20 years ago, bring in some new people. Bring in some people from the indies. Get some new blood and some new ideas. My favorite era of DC was when Mike Gold came in as editor in the 80s and brought tons of people who worked in the indies at First Comics and Eclipse Comics and said, here, just go. Just reinvent and go. I think DC really needs that if they want to make a mark. So there you go. There's my Suicide Squad team. Joe?
The next one I thought about, and a Legion of Superheroes, like to get them going again. I'd like to see the dream team of Paul Levitz and Keith Giffen going again. Giffen. Thank you. I have an extra spot in there. If Paul's busy, let's get Kurt Busiek in there because he did wonderful run with Avengers. He might be the new blood that needed to get this going again. Somewhere around, I have elsewhere a time travel thing where, let's take Booster Gold and reestablish the time fund at Marvel or DC. Well, Marvel too has, because they've got so many wonderful characters that are era specific. Commandy, Fighting Ace, Haunted Tank, whatever. I just would like to see someone take Legion of Superheroes with all of its continuity, all of its characters, and either tie it into the old stuff or just go with it. Don't even have to tie it into the current New 52 universe. Just, it's the future. It's a possible future. Just go with it. Either Paul, Kurt, Keith. Let's throw George Perez on there. Let's get 2 books going.
Let's give George Perez a heart attack.
George does everything. Okay, George.
Flash is another one of DC's big guns. So one of the people who's big at DC who's never worked on the character, I was surprised to find that out, Gail Simone. And for artist Jerome Eigel, who's done some fantastic work over at DC, but Gail Simone has not worked on the Flash. And one of the things I like about Gail Simone is she builds up a supporting cast. And one of the things, when Flash is at its best, to my mind, is when you have people like Mike Barron or William Messer-Loebs or Mark Waid build up that supporting cast. Because Flash himself, kind of a one-note power, but if you give him a good supporting cast and an interesting world to play in, the character really thrives. The things we remember most about Mark Waid's run were the innovations he brought in and all of the great secondary characters like Max Moon, like Impulse, like the Barry West thing. All of that was all based on the secondary characters. So Gail Simone over there, she has not played with the Flash yet. I don't know why, but I'd like to see her play with the Flash. Joe?
Well, see, she might be a little busy because I'm tapping her to do Power Girl.
Oh.
I'd like, or actually, not necessarily Power Girl, but I'd like to see them do the women in the DC universe. I don't know. This would be kind of a couple concepts. I mean, not necessarily like the way the DC's doing the superhero girls. Closer to like what they tried to do with the X-Men, where there was a team of just the X-women. Take the different women in the DC universe, either make a team, make a Defenders type thing. If you want, get Justin Gray in it, maybe art by Amanda Connor, Sammy Barsri. But start with Power Girl and go from there. Maybe she's a little upset because she's not in the Justice League and nobody's really paying attention to her, but she wants to do things. So, if she gets the women involved, there's a feminist agenda for you social warriors to crack. But I just think that would be kind of a fun. And like you said, if you're going to draw the women, you got to make them look good. Not necessarily sexy, but that's part of it. You want to make them look like women. And I like the artists like Amanda that are able to do that.
Joe, my favorite era of Green Arrow. Do you remember what it was?
I don't.
When Mike Grell wrote the book. When Green Arrow was kind of middle-aged, still a tough guy, still a liberal, but middle-aged, starting to slow down, starting to feel the weight of the years. Who's the best writer in comics for real men?
Chuck Dixon.
No.
Bo Smith.
Bo Smith
Now you're
should
talking.
be writing Green Arrow. An artist is a guy who knows his archers, David Aja, who did the unbelievably cool run on Hawkman. On Hawkeye. Yeah, it's typecasting, but still, I can imagine David Aja getting Bo Smith's scripts and just going hog wild with them. Bo Smith is a guy who does tough guys, tough broads, old action stuff. His stuff reads like a 70s men's adventure book in a good way. Put him on Green Arrow, have Green Arrow go back to being the guy in his 40s who's taken a few too many bumps, got a far too complicated past, and is just trying to make it day to day. Bo Smith, who's got more age on him too, would really be able to relate and come up with some great stuff, just like he does on the Winona Earp. The Winona Earp stuff. I'd love to see him take Green Arrow and turn Green Arrow into a badass. Joe, your next book?
Well, I would like to. There's a couple things that I talked about where DC's got characters like some are mystical, like Swamp Thing, Sandman. Some could be in the horror realm. Some kind of border the two. I'd like to see them bring back Dr. Fate and make him more of a preeminent magician of the DC cosmos. I'd like to see Jason Aaron and Chris Bachale. I think I'm saying that right, Bachale. I'd like to see them do it. They, of course, just finished a run on Doctor Strange for Marvel. Let's see what they can do with Marvel or DC Magic. I mean, they had a great thing come out a while back. I just finished rereading a Book of Magic by Neil Gaiman. and where they kind of reestablish magic and, of course, promptly ignored it. Start with Dr. Fate, and let's just reestablish that. You got the new 52 to work with. You got kind of a blank slate. Let's just make it. I want Dr. Fate a character that when he shows up, you know shit's getting real. You know something's going to happen. I'd like to see maybe a crossover between him and Doctor Strange. Hell, I'd like to see him maybe tap into the Amalgam universe again. You know, you got all sorts of tools and things you can play with in the sandbox. Let's get these things going, people.
Next book I have is Robin. If you got Batman, you got to have a Robin series. I think that's one of the problems with DC right now is all these different Robins running around. I'd like to see, decide who is Robin, and then have a Robin series. And I know that this won't happen because he's working in Marvel's TV section. But can you think of anybody better for Robin than Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale? They did the Batman, those yearbooks, the Long Halloween. Over at Marvel, they did Hulk Green, Captain America White, Spider-Man Red, Daredevil. And Jeff Loeb, the last book he did was about a young Nova that was really good. And I don't know why people didn't pick up on it. And Tim Sale's art with Jeff Loeb, there's some people where if Jeff Loeb is the writer, the stories stumble, but they've never put out a bad book with Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale working together. Put them on Robin. Let's make it where, at one point, Robin was DC's second most popular character. Let's do it again. Let's put those guys on it, build Robin up, make it a character that people have to read. Joe?
I'd like to take the aforementioned team of Chuck Dixon as writing and maybe Bill Tucci, and let's bring back some war comics, people. You got a great characters in the past, Sergeant Rock, Haunted Take, The Losers, tied in maybe with All-Star Squadron. Roy's dealing with the superhero side of the war. You guys deal with the war side of the war. I've seen some of the stuff that you guys have done. It's been a lot of fun, fantastic. Heck, give your buddy Bo a call. He's a manly man. He should probably do some war comics. But I'd like to see some of that, some of these properties come back. If you want, World War II, Nazis aren't good, worth fighting anymore. Move it up to Korea, whatever. Just let's get something fun going with some of these characters and with some good art and some decent stories here.
I'd love to see if somebody did a really kick-ass Enemy Ace series. Enemy Ace was about a German flying ace during World War I. And it was one of those books that when I heard about it as a kid, I don't want to read that. But as I've gone back and read it, very well done, very tasteful, liked it a lot. The last book I have, Justice Society. I missed the JSA. To me, that's been one of the big losses of the New 52. They didn't do a JSA. They did this Earth 2 thing, which really was very convoluted and very messy and all kinds of weird. Nope, I want the Justice Society. And Roy Thomas, there's no one on this planet who loves the Justice Society more than him. And for artists, you were probably a little shocked I didn't bring him up during Marvel because I was saving him for DC. Mark Bagley. Because Mark Bagley is one of those guys, he could do a whole bunch of superheroes, a team book, and they all look different, and he's able to choreograph a lot of characters. And if Roy Thomas is doing the Justice Society, there's going to be like 20, 30 characters in it. So that's who I'd want to see do the Justice Society. And just let Roy Thomas do the Justice Society till he retires. Joe, your last book?
Well, you used him already, but what the heck? Mike Grell's a talented guy. I'd like to see Warlord come back. Again, kind of tied into the mystical thing, kind of a jungle fight type thing. But that's probably one of the more classic series that Mike Grell's ever worked on. You can tie it in. I'd like to see that. What was the name of the land?
Skataris.
That's the nexus of all reality for DC Universe. You want to go to universe number 52, you got to go through this land to do it, and it's a deadly land. You may not make it. Since you're not going to blow up a nuclear bomb on Hyper Time, the way they did with Superboy, let's do that.
Punched a wall.
No, that was the Prime Superboy. I'm talking the real Superboy. Do you remember? They put him on a bomb, and that was the way they got him into Hyper Time. So, that would be my final choice. I loved Mike Grell's art doing it. He drew some fantastic characters, great dinosaurs, good-looking women.
Grell's one of those guys I wish he was doing more comics. Even if he was just writing them. I always liked his take on a character. His stuff in the 70s was pretty standard, pretty formulaic. But after he did John Sable freelance, it freed him up to kind of do different takes on characters. And I really enjoy that. I actually would like to see John Sable come back one of these days. But there you go. There's the first 12. We'll do the second 12 someday.
Someday.
Because our next episode is a special episode, Joe.
Oh.
Yeah, Gordon Jump's going to be touching you in the back of his bike shop. No. No, we're doing a special episode. We're going to be talking about The Dark Knight.
Ooh.
Not just Batman, The Dark Knight. We're going to do a special episode going over the first Dark Knight 2, and the recent Dark Knight, The Master Race.
Darn, I could have used a bike.
I don't think they got a bike out of it. I think they just got touched by Gordon Jump.
Well, you got that's going for you.
You know who's not going to touch you in the back of their bike shop?
That is not a good segue.
That's my favorite segue ever.
Worst segue ever.
I may just cut that out and use it every time. You know who's not going to touch you in the back of their bike shop? These guys, our sponsor.
Oh, my God, not this shit again.
That's right. Here at the Solitaire Rose Radio Network, we have ads, and our first sponsor is me. That's right. You're charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. I have my first book out with Dangerous Dan Moore. It's the first 100 strips of our online web strip, Worldwide News, the story of the lowest rated cable news network. And you can get yourself a copy with commentary, with all sorts of extras, with signatures and everything. Just email Dan over at lordshadowflame@gmail.com. Our top sponsor, who's been with us since day one, is DreamHost. DreamHost.com. You need yourself a website, and DreamHost.com is the #1 web host in the whole known universe. Just head over to DreamHost.com, put in the code KRAYZ, KRAYZ, get $20 off your first year. How can you beat that? Our other sponsor is Graze, GRAZE.com. Healthy snacks for a healthy lifestyle. Just head over to Graze, put in the code CORYS 3R5P. Your first and fifth box are free. You could get them weekly. You could get them bi-weekly. You could get them monthly. You could just order a whole bunch of them. It's great stuff to keep you away from the vending machine at work. Now, if you would like to leave a comment for any of the podcasts that we do, we'd love those. Go ahead and email us at solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com, or you can call 952-856-0519. Operators are standing by. Okay, it's just a place that will record your calls, but we'll play them on the air. We'll answer your questions. We love getting feedback. Tell us what you think. Ask a question. Suggest a topic. Be a guest. Send us your stuff. SolitaireRoseNetwork@gmail.com. If you would like to advertise on any of the Solitaire Rose radio shows, you can. Just email us at SolitaireRoseNetwork@gmail.com. Subject advertising. Thanks. Well, if you didn't like that segue, good Lord knows we got a lot more coming. Saturday, Joe, we had a new episode of Bad Advice with myself, Dan Moore, and Wolfie B. Bad. Came out on Saturday because I worked a lot last week, but it's there Saturday. There it was over at badadvice.solitairerose.com. This week, Joe, we have a new episode of a series in review.
Cool.
And you're even on it.
I don't even remember doing it.
It's the third part of our where we're going over Master Kung Fu. And then the last day of the week on Friday, we got a new episode of Novelcast. We're going to have a new episode of Solitaire Rose Radio real soon, where I'm interviewing some people with some Kickstarters. Got a couple experimental Solitaire Rose Radios coming up soon, too. One of which is going to be titled, That's How I Got to Memphis. So there's a tease for you. You've been teased, Joe. And also, Stephanie and Dave, they've got Scrabbling Across the West. As we speak right now, they are in Montana.
Rustling up some dental floss.
I was going to say, maybe they're starting a dental floss farm. But they're in Montana camping, and the low tonight is going to be in the low 30s.
Woo-hoo.
Whereas here in Minneapolis, it's right now it's 80 degrees.
Yep. Although it's getting down to fall next week, so
It's getting down to fall tomorrow.
I just gotta sweat while I can.
I'm pretty happy that it's going to... But then it's going to be in the 80s again next week. We're Minnesotans. We talk weather. But yes. I'm happy that for our trip, you and I, we're taking a trip.
Yep.
To Duluth. Duluth.
Duluth.
Boom. I want to wake up in a city that never wakes. But and our trip to Duluth might even be an episode someday.
It could be.
We got all kinds of stuff going on, so stay tuned to the Solitaire Rose Network. They've got more podcasts than you can shake a stick at, and for the God's sake, quit shaking your stick
down. You can take an eye out with that. That's not right.
And after we do all of my plugs, we then do Joe's plugs. Joe, what's going on the eBays? By the way, I have some eBay news.
Oh, eBay news.
One of my favorite websites was half.com. Do you remember the half.com?
I does.
It was a website that you could sell your books and DVDs and CDs and video games and stuff like that. And it was called half.com because it kind of encouraged you to put your used stuff up at half price. eBay bought it, was going to shut it down in like 2000. And we all lost our minds and said, no, you can't do that. Well, they very quietly shut it down about 2 weeks ago.
Ah.
So when you go to half.com, it says, sorry, half.com no longer exists. Would you like to go to eBay? And my reply was, well, no. But, Joe, you have people coming to your eBay.
Do you have a copy of Malibu Sun number 13, the promotional giveaway from 1992?
No.
You should have. It's worth $200. And do you know why? Let's ask the Strode.
Was that the first Youngblood?
No.
Was it Spawn?
Yes.
Ah.
And of all the run, as far as I can tell, that's the only one that's priced that way. The Wildcats one goes for a mere $20. But that one Malibu Sun really, really went crazy for some reason because it's the actual first published appearance of Spawn, probably outside of Wizard or something. I don't know. Might have trumped Wizard for all that matters. So, and I happen to have one. I put it there on eBays, and I was going to talk a little bit more about it, but somebody made me a fair offer price. So I don't accept it, and I sent it off. So
it's gone.
You were too late if you were actually looking. If that was the one Malibu Sun you needed to fill your collection. That's why you almost got to go over and, well, I would say daily, but, just check out KRAYZ. Everything's in the store. I'm revving it up for another year. And, of course, Fall Comic Con is right around the corner. And what I'm not dollaring out at the con, I will, if you're actually going to the con, you see something on the store you want, let me know. I'll take it offline and bring it to the show for you. If you're not coming to the show, which is at the Minnesota State Education Building.
Because you need to get educated.
And if you need more information, you go to mcbacomiccons.com.
They've got the list of creators up, is what I hear.
And some dealers, and advance tickets are on sale now. So, that line you can go through and get through a little bit quicker. So, if you do see something in the store you want, and if you go into the con, I'll bring it. If not, I've been known to give some decent deals to some of my better listeners, and of course I've got a whole vast accumulation of crap, and I'll grab something, and I tend to make it pertinent. So if you buy, say like Spider-Man 1 through 11, the Miles Morales version, or maybe the Brave and Bold 1-23 from 2007. No, don't stop listening to the podcast and look for it because somebody already beat you to it. But the point is, if you see something like that and you tell me you're a listener of this here show, I will find something appropriate and send it in. Just as a free. That's the type of guy I am. And it won't be out of the dollar bins. I'll probably grab something fun and that's more interesting to look at. So,
you've got a dollar bin?
Well, that's what it's going to Fall Comic-Con. I got about 25 boxes of stuff, and we'll talk a little bit more of that when we get into freaking and geeking. Krayz, or go back and listen to the sponsor again. Cory links to his never-changing website, and you can link to it from there.
The big change is that all the new episodes show up there. That's how you listen to this here podcast.
Yep.
Well, after Joe does his stuff, we get to my favorite part of the show.
Oh,
no, not where Cory bitches about the new Coke Zero sugar instead of Coke
I thought
Zero.
Maybe we were going to use some Lincoln Logs.
Well, isn't that what goldfish hide in your sock drawer for Easter?
No, my rabbit eats all the goldfish.
Oh, okay.
No,
it's freaking and geeky. Joe, what are you freaking on?
Where the hell did all my price stickers go? Son of a bitch, I dropped like $50 on these damn things before SpringCon just so I could label everything. Because, we collect things for the charity booth for SpringCon. So, again, another thing, if you had something you wanted to donate, then's a good time to get in contact with me and bring it to the show, and I'll pick it up and store it for you in my basement so it doesn't have to stay in yours, and we'll get it there for SpringCon. But, I have stickers $1, $2, $5, price is marked. Don't know where any of them are. So I had to turn around, and I didn't quite do the $50 extravaganza, but I dropped some change, and hopefully I get them their stickers ahead of time because I'm getting real lazy. I don't want to be manually price sticking everything. I just want $1, $2, $5, and yeah.
Well, that's why you and I do this show, because you're just darn lazy.
I am darn lazy. So that's pretty much all I've been freaking about. I did have kind of a weird health thing going where I was just dizzy all day. I didn't. Usually when I get up, because, I've talked about having rheumatoid arthritis, I get up, and I don't want to get up for one, but I do. I get moving, have a glass of caffeine, which I've never gotten into the coffee habit, but I do like Diet Mountain Dew. So I do appreciate those studies every week. Oh, diet soda is bad for you. Maybe worse than real soda. Whatever. Can't be any worse than the drugs I take to keep my rheumatoid going. And I'll take a shower, I'll get dressed, and then I'll decide whether or not to go to work. Well, I took Holly to school, and then I was coming back, and I was like, oh, my God, if I don't get pulled over, I'm going to put the truck into a tree to stop. And, problem when you get sick, working at least at TSA, is that they're very, you're like, oh, God, they're going to give me shit because I took a sick day. Oh, am I sick? Oh, well, that hemorrhaging isn't going to matter too much. I'll go to work anyway. But this was just bad. And I called in, and I felt bad about it. And I'm like, yeah, they're going to look at me like, yeah, you just took a sick day in front of your days off. We detect a pattern going here. So I'm like, okay, I'm homesick. I might as well do something about it. I couldn't get anything done. All I could do was sit and watch TV. I couldn't sit at the computer. I couldn't get through any comics. I couldn't get anything read. And I pretty much stayed that way until I went to the chiropractor the next day, and he kind of like, oh, yeah, your first rib's out of alignment. Here, let's adjust it. Pop.
You're all messed up.
Oh, my God. When he popped me, I thought my shoulder was on fire. And I was like, holy crap, that really hurt. He goes, yeah, it was blocked up. I said, that's the nerve that probably is making you feel so bad. Suddenly woke up and go, hey, I'm alive. And after about 5 minutes, the tingly, fiery sensation dropped, and so did the fuzzy-headedness. And I'm like, oh, I feel pretty good. I haven't even gotten into the therapy yet. So it was kind of a bizarre day. And of course, part of me is like, well, let's see. The last guy I know that said he was feeling fuzzy and dizzy at work was having a heart attack and didn't even remember going into the hospital from work. So you always got that in the back of your mind. We're getting old, I mean, just even now, one of Cory and my friends went in for gallbladder surgery, and he's out.
Gallbladder.
Yep. He didn't have quite the drama you did. And then, of course, my good buddy Gru's going in for a what do you call that? Colonoscopy.
Those are fun.
Yeah. And I gave him all the prep notes I could possibly give him, and he did the smart thing. You know, he's going to be drinking on Sunday, so at least he can watch football while he's running to the bathroom, and he's doing it right away in the morning, so that way you're not going to be sitting all day waiting. So everybody's getting
sitting
old.
all day pooing.
Very freaky.
Well, you don't really poo. You spray.
Don't trust a fart. That's all I can tell you. Cory, what are you freaking on?
First thing I'm freaking on, another death in not really in comics, but in art, Basil Gogos, who is probably best known for his painted covers of famous monsters, passed away Wednesday. And one of those guys, once you see his art, you know it, because his paintings of Frankenstein and Dracula and the Wolfman and all the other famous monsters are just kind of burned in your head, because they would use them on Famous Monsters magazine, and then they'd be reprinted everywhere. When I went to see the Guillermo del Toro exhibit at the Art Institute, del Toro has some of his original paintings. The printing does not do them justice. They were phenomenal. You could see the brush strokes. You could see the energy. You could feel them coming off the canvas. They were amazing paintings. And hopefully we're going to find out if he did paintings other than, the monster icons, because I'd love to see his work on fine art. But he passed away on Wednesday. In lesser freakings, I've been reading 70s comics when I'm at work, because I've had to go into work 9 p.m. all week for my sleeping overnight, so I'm really only home for about 2 hours before I go in. And I read, I tried to read Son of Satan, the 8-issue series from Marvel in the 70s. Wow, that was a dog. You're holding back, Cory. John Warner's stories just, first off, they're way overwritten. Unbelievably overwritten. Tons and tons of dialogue and text, and just, it wasn't even purple, it was just dull. Covering up the art. Jim Mooney's art in the 70s was some of Marvel's best, but the inker they paired him up with just buried his art under it. Just really a poor series. And it was a hard slog that I did not make it through. It's pretty rare that I will not want to see how a story ends. The first 3 issues are a trilogy, and in the middle of the second issue, I basically said, I don't want to bother reading this anymore.
I'm tapping out.
If I die right now, this would be the last thing I read, and I would really be disappointed. I only have so much time on this earth left. I don't want to spend it on this. Second thing is looking at the previews. Man, they can't get an Archie book out on time to save their goddamn lives.
Yeah, I was just wondering about that.
Even the regular Archie series, which had been going okay for a while, nope, they're skipping a couple months. And look, it's a new issue of Sabrina. When was the last one? About 2 years ago. What about the Afterlife with Archie? Nope, haven't seen hide nor hair of the damn thing.
Never last.
And the thing is, Archie did have a buzz going, but man, if you can't get the books out, you can't keep. If you can't do the work, the buzz is going to leave, and nobody's going to care. If I have any advice for any comic creator, anybody who does comics, do the work. I can't tell you how many indie creators I have befriended on Facebook, and if they spent half the time actually creating as they did talking about what they're drawing, taking a picture of them drawing, pictures of how pretty they are or how cute they are or how buff they are, or no, sit down, fucking grab a pen and do some goddamn drawing. Maybe we'd buy your stuff. your cute selfies of you at the gym or of you being pretty, that's not going to make you a goddamn penny. Do the art. God damn it, do the art. Although there's one guy I wish wouldn't have done the work, Joe.
What's that?
I read the first issue of R.L. Stine's Man-Thing. I'm kind of well known as being a big Man-Thing fan. I love my Man-Thing.
Yeah, you've been known to whip out your giant-sized Man-Thing in the most inappropriate times.
I love my Man-Thing. This story sucked donkey balls. Ted Sallis is now, his mind is awake inside Man-Thing, and he's making movies. Let that sink in, Joe. He's still Man-Thing. He's Ted Sallis, who's been trapped in this muck-encrusted monstrosity of a man for 40 years, and rather than, do something to change his life, or he's created the super soldier serum. He was the one who perfected the formula the second time. Nope, he's out in Hollywood making movies.
Well, if you got a giant-sized Man-Thing, I could see that might be appropriate.
And then there was Backup Story, a short little horror story. And I haven't read R.L. Stine's Goosebumps books because when they came out, I was not 8 years old. So I did not read the Goosebumps. I was in my 20s. And they weren't aimed at me. But this was a little backup horror short story, and it literally was the dumbest thing I've read in a comic book in a good 20 years. It was not just cliched, it was terrible. And the twist ending was like, what?
What's a twist?
It wasn't even that. It was like, you could tell he was going for a twist ending, but it's like, well, that doesn't make any fucking sense. And I can see why I've not seen any more R.L. Stine comics from Marvel. It's probably, well, he got a contract to do this book with him, and he does have a big name, but Jesus, God, this is crap. So those are the things I'm freaking on. Joe, what are you geeking on?
I saw U2 in concert.
I saw that.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, the U.S. Bank Stadium is the worst place to go for a concert. And, granted, there aren't many super bands left that could, fill a giant stadium. But, boy, football stadiums are not the place to have concerts. I could not make heads or tails out of what Bono was saying, and he had a lot to say. I just couldn't make out what he was saying. Both the music was fine. Opening act was Beck, which I didn't realize, and that was fantastic. I got me a little Joshua Tree to put on my hat. All in all, I think the concert would be better in a smaller venue, or if you could pay for the cheaper seats on where you stand on the main floor. We were in the very last row of the U.S. Bank Stadium. You couldn't get any higher without falling out of the stadium. And but all in all, it was a fun time. Who we were with was kind of fun. And if you get a chance to see it, it was a good show to see. As I'm wading through my vast accumulation of crap, trying to figure out what I'm bringing to Fall Comic-Con, October 7th, 2017, I've been going through. Well, I was involved in the first free comic book day in terms of picking up stuff. I only had, I think, one, maybe two when I had Crazy Comics that I actually was able to participate in as a retailer. The concept wasn't around when I had the big store, although I wish it had been, because for most retailers, and even when I had Crazy Comics, Free Comic Book Day itself is an event of such magnitude that I made as much as I did in one day as I did an entire week of sales. It's almost like a freebie day for everybody. And a lot of places like The Source, Hot Comics, even Tim up at Granite City, who we go and we get a set from every year, they make a big deal of it. However, going through all these books, there are tons, and I mean tons, of publishers that just don't exist anymore. They came, they spit out, maybe some of them just spit out a Free Comic Book Day thing and went away. Some of them maybe published one or two issues. Some of them did some stuff that I'm like, why did I never know about this? For example, Ballad of Sleeping Beauty from Beckett Comics, which was an interesting idea. You take the classic fairy tale, give it a Western backup, and the book was the little freebie from Comic Book Day. And this was back in 2004 when the sucker come out. The actual number one was the free Comic Book Day, and then it went for 8 issues, and there's a collected. So, and of course, none of them have any value, so I'm actually looking forward to getting it. Another one I was kind of disappointed with, a Young Terrorist, came out in 2015 from Black Mask. A real tough, almost Oz-type Orange is the New Black prison situation. Very compelling. I read it. I looked up on my go-to site, atomicavenue.com. There's only 2 issues of it, and then $1. And I'm like, well, that's fine. There's about 105 different variant covers, but I'm curious, did it ever finish? So, again, I've got issue 1, looking for issue 2. Another one called One Man Punch from Viz, which actually was kind of cool. This one actually came out as, I think there's 11 volumes in the graphic novels.
Yes, One Punch Man, actually. It's One Punch Man.
Yeah, and I love it because it's just a little bit you get. The guy walks up, the villain screams, one punch, villain's down. And I'm like, that was just enough in the sampler to get me to want to go buy some of these. And the sampler came out, I think, 2015. Another one that I am... the Stuff of Legend from Third World. The free Comic Book Day thing was in, I believe, 2009. And this one actually has a couple books and a couple series. I think it's one of those that they come back to. It's TH Third World. It's basically a child's taken by the fearsome boogeyman, and his toys rally to rescue him. Almost like Toy Story, but this one's a little darker, a little grimmer. Another one from Oni that I picked up, and this was actually, I guess, a hardcover. And the Comic Book Day was just a sampler called Junior Braves of the Apocalypse. It's kind of like Walking Dead for kids. And Junior Braves is kind of a Boy Scout type thing. And again, another one, if I can find a copy of the hardcover, I will. And then the last one, there's a couple other I'll talk about, but 40 Winks from Odd Job, which was kind of interesting because it was a 4-issue series. There's a couple other ones that are out there. Pandora's A Girl Loves to Draw, just like her mother. She died 3 years ago. But what happened is that when she draws, her dreams seem to come to life. There's this anthropomorphic snake and spider with French and Scottish accents, respectively, that she uses as inspiration. And there's a large multi-eyed shape that threatens her dream worlds and all of its inhabitants. And it was compelling enough. And again, when I first got this one, I think this was, when the heck did I don't even know when the free Comic Book Day thing came out. I kind of ignored it and didn't really pick up on it. Because, we talk about it, but I don't really get a chance to read everything and talk about everything like I want. There was another one I'm looking for I can't find. Well, here's one. Cory, have you heard of Tom Gauld? Gauld?
No.
Oh, I just read the sampler that Drawn and Quarterly gave us back in 2016, Moon Cop. Just very simple, very compelling artwork, good story, good drama. He's done a lot of different books, such as You're All Just Jealous of My Jetpack or Goliath. And there's one where they're talking about books and just different books. And the one goes, Our Dear Departed Books. The one dropped in the bath. The one mauled by a baby. The one taken on an Italian holiday and never came back. The one lent to an unreliable friend. To the one left on the bus. To the one accidentally recycled with the newspapers. To the one that might be in one of those boxes in the basement. I mean, just fun stuff. So I've got a new artist that I just love, Drawn and Quarterly. He did a hardcover called Moon Cop that I'm going to have to go find and try to pick up. And there's one, and of course, now I can't find it because I probably put it in a safe spot, called Extinction Parade by the guy who did World War Z, if you can remember who that was.
Max Brooks?
Yes.
By the way, that's
Avatar.
Mel Brooks' son.
What? Who? Where? What?
That's Mel Brooks' son.
Oh, wow. Well, this is one of those books, and I'm kicking myself, because we were talking how previews, not this month, but last month, Avatar was clearing out stuff, and I hadn't figured out this one yet. I would have loved to seen if they had those volumes out, because there's 2 volumes, 7 in the first one, 5 in the other. The gist of the story is there's zombie apocalypse, it's killing off the human populations, and the vampires are laughing their asses off. Because not only can they walk amongst the zombies when the zombies don't care or recognize them, and then they realize, hey, wait a minute. If the zombies kill off the humans, who are we going to live on? And that's the concept of the Extinction Parade. And again, there's 2 series, 2 graphic novels I'm on the hunt for looking. And I was talking with Cory earlier in the day about going through all your free comic book day stuff. And, you know, some of it's worth stuff, some of it isn't. A lot of it are series that you never hear from, companies that have gone out of business. Some are actually worth some serious money, just like the aforementioned Malibu Sun number 22. So if you're going to just dump them, fine, dump them, but take a look. First of all, if you know you have a complete set, that's some bling on the eBays. But there are a few that actually have a little bit more heat behind them. One of them called Loud House. I haven't even read it. I just know copies are going for like $10 or more. Going down Legend of Korra, Korra. Or Kowora. It's a manga. Again, I haven't read it, but $10 for these issues that allegedly were free. So, I thought I went through all my stuff, and then I found I got me another box full of comic book day stuff to go through. So I'm going to be up late. In the meantime, things I've actually read, as I said, my biggest problem is as I'm going through this stuff, I got to stop and read stuff that slow me down. I just finished reading Sandman Midnight Theater by Neil Gaiman and Matt Wagner. If you've never read it, if you're a Sandman fan, you should, because he's in it for one of them, Morpheus, and it's a good mystery.
Yeah, well, better.
Yeah, better. And it's a good done in one series, kind of fun to read. For just sheer joy and fun, Jill Thompson did the Little Endless Storybook, which is basically the story of Barnabas looking for delirium. And of course, Jill just has a fantastic art style, and it was a lot of fun to read. I was talking earlier about some of the different Sandman Presents. I read this one shot called Everything You Always Wanted to Know About Dreams, but Were Afraid to Ask. And this is a fun and done in one series, such as why are so many dreams sexual in nature? Well, blame Marvin that pumpkin for most of it. Why are some dreams reoccurring? Well, they basically go off the idea that when they're setting up a dream for people, especially influential people, it's more like a movie set. And if sometimes the crew doesn't get in place, well, they just rerun an old dream. Why is it so often hard to remember your dreams? Well, that's because they lose track of where they are in the library. So if you ever wanted to know anything, pick up the one shot, Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About Dreams But Were Afraid to Ask. Red Thunderbolts Annual 1, this is the series by Acker where he puts together the Rolk, Punisher, Elektra, Deadpool, Venom, and they're going after Doctor Strange because Doctor Strange is making everybody happy. This was actually a fun series. I read another series I found. I don't know why I picked it up, but I had issues 20, 21, and 22 where they end up going to hell to, for whatever reason. And they bring, apparently their leader is now a red leader and not tied into Star Wars anywhere. But this was a quick 3-issue series, so if you get a chance, either on Marvel Unlimited or aforementioned Dollar Box at Fall Comic Con, pick up that run of Thunderbolts that Charles Soule and Carlos Barbera did. In darker terms, I was talking about some of the darker things in DC. Well, I was kind of touring some of the dark areas in Marvel. And it was a series that came out, Legion of Monsters. And I don't think I have all of them. But I got one, Man-Thing, has a Simon Garth zombie love story. Story in it. Okay, it's a love story, yes. And then there's a Santana, which has a gorgeous Greg Land cover on it. And also a Jonathan Hickman story. He doesn't do the Santana part, but he did do the Living Mummy story. So if you're a Hickman fan, you might want to go check this out. These are wonderful examples of the way to take these horror characters and just have some fun with them. Get them circulated, and this is the real man thing, not the movie star man thing. And then I read something, Corey, you might be able to talk more about it, because I was not impressed with it at all. The Legion of Night. Steve Gerber, Bertaccio, Scott Williams, Paul Mounts. I have had several copies of this. I picked up a copy of this back at Northern. That was a con in Forest Lake, and I figured, I'm going to actually sit down and read this one. The art's pretty.
Yeah.
I don't know what.
I never made it through it, but quite honestly.
I did, but it's really bad. I mean, it's. Oh, by the way, I have it on eBay if you want it, so go check out how bad it is. You can pick it up. A couple other things read. I found The Man of Steel by John Byrne graphic novel that I picked up. I don't know where I picked this sucker up, but I don't have it, and I reread it, and it was a lot of fun. And I think I got me one of my picks for the next DC one. And I found my first digest version, The Amazing Spider-Man, that Marvel Comics is doing through Archie. There wasn't a third issue or fourth issue, was there?
Nope, third issue's the next one.
Okay,
so far it's Spider-Man and Thor. Spider-Man and Avengers. Thor is the next one.
This is the same thing. He's got some really fun stories, and of course it starts out with a perfect story, the perfect story in the annals of comic history. And Corey, do you know what the title of that issue was?
A Guy Named Joe.
No, just. A guy named Joe.
That was Ditko's last story, by the way.
Oh, and what a fantastic story. I don't know. I see Ditko all over it, but, it was just a fun story. Again, I'm having a lot of fun with these digests. My problem is I read them all in one sitting, usually at work. The other problem is I'm damaging them. I can't quite, for some reason, I just can't keep them in mint shape. So if you have yours in mint shape, you're one up on me. Last thing I read, of course, I was all excited. I was really apathetic about Dark Knight's Metal. I'm really excited about it now.
Metal.
Really well. And it ties into God knows what all over the place. There's a lot of things going on in the background. Batman's not an asshole, but he is trying to get something done, and he's screwing up. And fortunately, there's more issues to come. If you get a chance, I'm just picking up the metal part. I'm not picking up the side crossovers and that, but I've been enjoying it. And of course, since I didn't pre-order it, I'm just going to go pick it up at the source. While I was sick, I talked about I watched TV, and the two things I watched were a couple old Nova reruns. The first one was about the mega tomb that they're putting over the Chernobyl site.
Yes, that was fascinating.
I know. The gist is, when they first built a sarcophagus over the radiation. The radiation's there. It's going to be there for 20,000 years, folks. Hopefully this podcast will be around. But anyway.
Damn right we will.
Because we're a national treasure. Oh, my God, he's got me saying it. But the problem is, anytime you put metal out in the open, in cold and heat and rain and dust and water,
and
it's going to deteriorate. And they're worried about it collapsing and releasing another radioactive event that could rival Chernobyl that first come out. So they got a French team and a bunch of Americans and Russians and Europe and Japanese. Everybody got together and they built this. What would you call it? A giant dome?
Yeah. They're pretty much encasing the entire reactor site inside.
It's 30 stories tall.
Concrete and metal. And they have to do all these things so that the weather changes. Oh, we want to make sure that there's not water condensation because that's going to cause rust.
They sealed it inside.
All these different things that they have to do for it.
They had to do it 300 yards away from the site because there was too much radioactivity next to the site.
And then they had to move it.
And move it there, yeah. And it was just amazing watching them do it. There's the spooky thing is when they show film of people actually in the reactor. It looks like it's snowing. What that is radiation reacting to the film, the gamma particles that are in there that are quite lethal if you're in there for too long. The second one I watched was Why Trains Crash, which was, again, I like trains, and it's something about, generally falls down to human error, track fatigue, or, you've seen that, what was that town in Canada that blew up? Because a runaway train with tanker trucks on it blew up in the middle of the city, wiped out
I don't
the middle.
know.
Oh, it was horrific. The guy took pictures of it nearby. 60 people or more died. The town is still pretty much flattened. One of the things that stuck with me with that is what surprised people when they have all these derailments and these cars especially from North Dakota crude, and they're blowing up. Because generally crude oil does not explode. But what happened is apparently when you get the stuff from North Dakota, it has methane and propane and other things in it that makes it very combustible if you have a derailment. And, of course, there were a lot of explosions in it. And, again, another fascinating thing, and they get into it, why trains crash and what they can do to prevent it. And so I got two of those down. I only got about 15 more on my schedule. I tell you, man, once I finish with this Falcon Comic-Con blowout, man, I've got me some serious TV to catch up on. Phew. I had my fair share of geeking. Cory, what are you geeking on?
I don't have as much as you. The first thing I am geeking on, you remember how I said I read the Son of Satan series and hated it?
Yeah.
Hated it a lot.
A lot.
Do you know why I read it, Joe?
Because it was there?
No, because I read the Marvel Spotlight issues that came before it and loved them.
Oh.
They were, the first two were by Mike Friedrich, and it was basically that Son of Satan kicked his dad's ass.
He's not having a good time. I mean, Santana in her book basically gave Satan a little bit of lip, too. I mean, you think being the devil would give you some clout, but boy, the kids are just nasty.
And one of the problems was they didn't really know how to handle him. It was another one of those things where it's, okay, he's Damien Hellstrom when the sun is up, but when the sun goes down, he's the son of Satan. Steve Gerber took over, cleaned that up, and made it so, when he does the sign of the trident, he becomes the son of Satan, and really kind of dealt with the fact that it was two personalities in one, and they were overlapping, and Gerber spent a lot of time playing with that, which is the kind of stuff Steve Gerber likes to do. But you had issues by Gene Colan, you had Jim Mooney being inked well, and Gil Kane did a couple issues too. So Marvel was really putting their big guns behind it, because you don't put Gene Colan and Gil Kane on a book if it's something you don't give a shit about. But man, those Gerber issues were a lot of fun. That's why when I'm reading the first issue of Son of Satan by John Warner, it's like, the fuck? What the fuck?
We were high.
But this was good. What happened? Oh, that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing, I am still reading a bunch of the Savage Sword of Conans when I'm at work. And I put this out on the Fire Breathing Twitter machine and on the Facebook today. And god damn, John Buscema was good. The art is, just blows me away. You could tell that he cared because there's a lot more of his detail. The inking was much more detailed because it was black and white. But man, we had no idea how good we had it with John Buscema doing 60 to 80 pages of comics a month, Joe. I would put him right under Jack Kirby for my favorite pencilers. And it's just so good. It's so good. Do yourself a favor. when you're at the comic shop and you see those big, thick Savage Sword of Conan books from Dark Horse, they're $20 each. Look through, and if it's mostly John Buscema art, buy that sumbitch. Just buy it. Don't even think. Just buy it. And the last thing is a new comic. And Joe, I'm forcing you to go to the comic shop again. Remember when the Vision #1 came out, and I said buy this book?
Yes,
I was right.
And that was before you actually got a letter printed in it.
Yeah. Tom King, who did the Vision, is doing Batman. Is doing a 12-issue Mr. Miracle series with Mitch Gerards, who was the penciler on the book Sheriff of Babylon. This one feels like the Vision. I'm a huge Mr. Miracle fan, and I'm reading this book, and it's like, okay, I don't know what's going on, but it's cool. It gives you that vibe of things just aren't right. Things are creepy. Things are weird. There's something not right here. And it's that same vibe I got with the first issue of The Vision. And looking back on Vision #1, how he planted all these seeds that paid off much later on, I cannot wait for the next issue of Mr. Miracle. And I was not looking forward to a new Mr. Miracle because he's a hard character to pull off. But Tom King pulled it off. It's a great book. And you're going to read it, and it's going to be one of those comics where you go, I got to have the next issue, and I got to have it right now. So it was really good that we were able to get yet another comic where, and from DC no less, because DC has a lot of trouble with first issues, where you're like, oh, I can't wait to read more of this. So maybe things are going to turn around for comics, Joe. And the last thing I'm geeking on, I go out to the car every day, and there are leaves on the car.
Yeah, we're getting them around here too. I like watching.
And no, not because the trees are sick of me. Fall is here.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't feel like it temperature-wise, but and calendar-wise, we're a few. By the time this here podcast drops, it will be. But that's one of those. Actually, we'll still have a couple of days before. Timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly thing.
But we are going up to Duluth, and I just checked the fall foliage earlier today, and they are not at peak, but they're getting there.
Cool.
And some of the trees around my neighborhood are starting to get the leaves that are, a little yellow, a little red. We're getting some fall color around here. I love fall colors, and I love one of the things when I think. For different seasons, you think different comics. In the summer, you're thinking, reading those annuals, reading the big, thick stories, stuff like that. For fall, it's more, this is when, the important stuff happens. This is when Crisis on Infinite Earths got serious. This is when Rebirth happened. This is when Infinity Gauntlet started dropping. Marvel's got Legacy coming. I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to some fun fall reading. And the first week of October, I will be driving down to Illinois, but I've planned it so that I get to take a whole day driving down rather than, oh my God, I got to get down there in 6 hours. I'm going to take the whole day because I want to be leisurely. I want to do, there's some sort of touristy thing. I'm going to go see that. So I'm looking forward to fall, Joe.
Well, do what I do. Plan your trip according to which comic shops you can hit, and then maybe you can give us a tour of different comic shops, the way like I used to do when I was traveling.
But I want to go to where Captain Kirk was conceived.
Well, it hasn't happened yet, so there's no hurry.
No, but there's a plaque.
But there is a
plaque at the bar where he is conceived.
See, you're taking this the wrong way. You don't know what comic shops are between here and there.
Yeah, I do.
Then go find them.
Have you stopped at a couple of them?
Have you stopped at the Cap City Comics in Madison?
Oh, I'm not going that way. I'm going through Iowa.
Oh, okay, never mind. Because that we might never get you out of there. That's a classic comic shop where stuff is piled to the ceiling and, hey, do you got this? Yeah, it's somewhere on that side of the store.
But, I'm looking forward to fall, and I'm even looking forward to winter. I've got this weird idea, Joe.
They're all weird. That's why we're podcasting.
Because I have I have the Friday before Christmas off, I have that entire weekend off, and I have Christmas off. I'm thinking, why don't I just rent a cabin somewhere where I could sit in front of a wood fireplace and read comics and walk in the snow and do all that sort of do stuff.
Well, the only danger you got to watch out for is that if you're along the North Shore, there's a lot of different places. Some of them might not be open because a lot of these places just close during the summer. Yep. You get close to Lutsen, you're going to run into people, well, using ski areas. Virginia, you're close to Giant Ridge. Even up Ely Way, they have a couple wintry spots. But, it's been known to be done.
Well, believe it or not, kids, you've listened to us blather on about funny books for the last hour and a half. And we didn't once mention Capwolf.
No. Maybe next time. Sorry.
Why haven't they brought Capwolf back, Joe? And, as we say every week, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Joe?
Why does Wonder Woman like her friend Etta Candy so much? Because she's so sweet.
When I get to your house, I'm burning.
You could say just 5 times fast, Wonder Woman, wild, wide-eyed window washers.
Burning the book.